Hello, my name is Lee Presser. This is my show. I speak frequently to very interesting people. Some of these conversations are so exciting, so intellectually stimulating, I thought others might like to listen in. This is the reason we started recording Conversation with Lee Presser.
Welcome to Conversation with Lee Presser. This year is a presidential election year. Across the country, state political parties are choosing their delegates to their national conventions. In the state of Missouri, delegates will be chosen by a caucus process rather than by a primary election. Oddly, there was a primary election held on February 7th, which cost millions, but no delegates were chosen via that election process. Our guest today, Judd, is here to explain the Republican Caucus process, which begins in March. He has been involved in Missouri Republican politics since 1980. Mr. Judd is currently the district director for Missouri State Senator Jim Lembke. He is also the Republican Township Committeeman for Tesson Township in St. Louis County. Judd, welcome to Conversation.
Thank you for having me, Lee.
You have a long career, but you're not an elected politician, except for this township committeeman. You did get elected to that, right?
Yes.
But other than that, you've not been in elected politics, have you?
Correct. I've never been elected to public office, only
Right.
Party office.
Right. Oh, there's a big difference right there.
Exactly.
Right. So, all right, as I said, the state of Missouri spent millions of dollars holding a primary election on February the 7th, and then from that, nothing happened. I mean, it was just a beauty contest. How did that come to be? Last time in 2008, that actually counted for something. Delegates were chosen in 2008 via that process, wasn't it?
Yes, exactly.
So what changed?
Well, I'd like to take you through that a little bit, Lee. In 2008, we had a party primary, and the results were binding. And now we've gone to the caucus system. Now, first, what happened was the Republican National Committee communicated to the Missouri Republican Party that if we held our primary in February, and if that primary meant something, we would be punished. The punishment would be we would lose half of our delegates to the Republican National Convention.
Now, that's not just Missouri. I mean, all of the state parties, Republican state parties, were told this same thing, right?
Yes.
Up to what, like April 1st or something? That's where the punishment ends?
I'm not sure on the exact date, but they were concerned that the process was too front-loaded and they wanted it more back-loaded.
Right.
And that was their reasoning for issuing this edict.
Okay. So and you were going to have in February, and therefore you were going to lose half your delegates.
Absolutely. So the Missouri General Assembly took care of it, they thought, by passing a bill that moved our primary from February to March, but the governor decided to veto that bill. And not because of that particular provision, but because he disliked other provisions that were in the bill. Mm-hmm. So then we went on to the fall special session, and another attempt was made to move our primary from February to March. Mm-hmm. And specifically in the bill that was being considered, by the time it got to the floor of the Senate, it moved our primary from February 2012 to February 2016. Now that was debated, and it failed on a 16-16 tie. Now, the Missouri Republican Party faced a September 30th deadline to inform the National Committee what our process would be for choosing delegates, a firm deadline. So, faced with the possibility of losing delegates to Tampa Bay, the Missouri Republican State Committee decided to preserve our delegates, that we would go with the caucus system. And that's how we ended up with the caucus system this year.
Mm-hmm. So it must not be April 1st, it must be somewhere like March 1st or something where the punishment date ends. Because you wouldn't be moving to March if you were still going to get punished. Why why is the caucus system as complicated as it? Because you're about to explain this system, and I've read the process. It's a pretty complicated system for picking delegates.
Well, even in a winner-take-all primary, you still have to choose the people that are going to represent that state at the national convention.
That's true. I mean, a lot of people don't realize that, like when when the presidential candidate wins a winner-take-all state, like in Florida, that they get a certain number of delegates, but who the delegates are wasn't chosen that day, was it?
Exactly right, Lee. For example, on a ballot, all you see is the names of the candidates themselves.
Right.
So the caucus system sets forth the process for getting our folks to Tampa Bay.
The actual individuals.
Yeah, the actual individuals at the end of August.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's start. Take us through the process. What's going to? So there's going to. We've had the February 7th primaries come and gone. All right. Now what's the next step?
Just touching on that briefly, in Missouri, anybody can walk into a polling place and they, on that primary day, can be a Republican, a Democrat, a Constitution Party member, or a Libertarian Party member. Mm-hmm. And also, I wanted to make our viewers aware that on each of those 4 ballots is the option, instead of voting for an individual person, you can vote for uncommitted. So that's the first step. The next step in the process is the beginning level caucus. Now that will be on March 17th at 10 a.m. Now, with 2 exceptions, all throughout Missouri, these are going to be county-wide caucuses that the entire county will meet in one specific location within the county. The 2 exceptions are the city of St. Louis. They got permission from the state committee to hold theirs on March 24th. And the other exception that I'm aware of is St. Louis County. St. Louis County got permission to hold 28 township caucuses. Mm-hmm. So that is how we will hold our caucuses at the beginning level.
So there's not going to be one huge convention of Republicans on the 17th. They're going to be subdivided by their townships.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And just to take you through the timeline more, the next step in the process is the April 21st Congressional Convention. Now, as you know, Lee, in Missouri, we're going from 9 congressional districts to 8. So on April 21st, there will be 8 congressional conventions. And the final Missouri step in the process is the June 2nd Missouri State Republican Convention in Springfield, and that will be held at the John Q. Hammons University Plaza Hotel and Convention Center.
Where is this, you said?
In Springfield.
In Springfield.
On June 2nd at the John Q. Hammons University Plaza Hotel.
So let's just review this.
Center.
So it's March the 17th is at the township level. So near people's homes, you're going to have one meeting that you have to find that's being run by what? The township committee men and women of that township?
That's a good question. I have been appointed to be the pro tem chairman of the Tesson Caucus. So the county chair, Rich McGee, appoints a pro tem chairman.
So it's not necessarily the township committee men and women who are going to be running these meetings.
Most likely it'll be one or the other that will be.
But not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
So it's whatever the Republican chairman of the county says.
Yes.
Okay, so then the next date, so St. Patrick's Day is the beginning.
Yes.
Then you said April 21st is that's the county-wide meeting?
No, that's the congressional-wide meeting.
Oh, congressional-wide meeting.
Could I just give an example?
District. Yes.
I'm in the 2nd Congressional, and right now that district is comprised of only 2 counties, a part of St. Louis County and a part of St. Charles County. Mm-hmm. So for people that want to be involved, it's real easy to make the commitment to attend that congressional convention. It's going to be either in St. Louis County or St. Charles County. And
So we still don't have a specific location for that, I gather from what you just said.
no, the state party is giving a lot of input to the chairman because they want to make sure that this is pretty well organized, in that sense.
And then you said June the 2nd is the next meeting,
Yes,
and that is in Springfield?
yes,
And that's for the whole state.
That's the whole state. Mhm.
Right. So let's just say, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, they want to participate in the process. They want to help pick pick delegates who are going to be going to the national convention in Tampa. That's the Republican convention site. How do they go about this?
Well, the first thing they must do is to put that March 17th on their calendar and come to the local beginning level caucus.
This is the one near their house in their township.
Right.
Okay.
Now,
And what do they do there?
at the beginning level caucus on March 17th, we are going to elect delegates and alternates that will go to the April 21st congressional convention. We will elect delegates and alternates that go to the June 2nd state convention. And one of the best things from my point of view is on that day we're going to have a thorough discussion of our state party platform. It'll be in a draft form for us to consider that day. But as an activist, I have a once in 4-year opportunity at the very grassroots level to get my ideas into our Republican state party platform. So I can show up on March 17th and let's say I want term limits for everybody in Missouri in our party platform. I can get that idea passed at the March 17th level and then continue to pursue that level, that idea through the April 21st convention and on to the June 2nd convention with the hopes that my idea will be in the final product in the June convention.
Now, if something is in the platform at the end, after the June 2nd meeting, what does that actually mean in terms of reality? What happens to a platform?
Well, I think that you can use it as a rallying point vis-a-vis other political parties. If your principles that you stand for are in your party's platform, and you can use it as a rallying point in the campaign, and then after folks are elected, you can kind of say, do you agree with the platform? And they'll respectfully tell you whether or not they do agree with what is in the state party platform.
So in your example of term limits for everyone, there are certain office holders that don't have term limits. There are some that do, others that don't. That would still have to go through the process through the legislature, right, in which a bill is written and the law is actually changed from what it is to what you want it to be.
Absolutely. But it would be our clarion call by a voice of the state convention in the end to say that this is what we want. Let me just be specific. Right now in Missouri House, it's 8 and out. In the Missouri Senate, it's 8 and out. And this is what's not really well known. The only 2 executive offices that are 8 and out are the governor and the treasurer office. So what I would like to see is the lieutenant governor, secretary of state, attorney general, and the auditor also be subject to 8 and out. And then we would be applying 8 and out equally to everyone. But that's just an example, Lee, of how just any little person like myself can go to the March 17th caucus and say, this is what I'd like to see in our platform.
Now, of course, a lot of people who go to these caucuses think that they're going there to help determine who's going to be the nominee of the party to be the presidential candidate, right?
Yes.
Now, how do they accomplish that task?
Well, if you're in favor of a particular candidate in your township, what you would do would rally all the people that feel strongly about that particular candidate and get them out to the caucus.
And what I'm saying, once you're there and you brought your friends who are all for one particular candidate, let's just use some names, whether they're bringing people that they want, I want Romney, I want Gingrich, I want Santorum, Ron Paul, as I understand it, had considerable influence the last time that there was a caucus held in the Missouri caucuses. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Right. And that's just regular people showing up at these meetings, had an enormous amount of influence. A lot of regular Republicans were kind of blown away by that, weren't they?
Yes, they were very much surprised. Now, as with anything, it's all about organization. If you get your people out to the caucus, then you can elect committed delegates to your candidate that will go on to the April 21st Congressional Convention and express that, and go on to the June 2nd State Convention and express that. If you'd like.
Specifically, though, how does that work on that day, March the 17th? Now, I bring 30 of my close friends who are all for Newt Gingrich, okay? We show up in this room wherever that meeting was set in my township, okay? What goes on in that room to help make that decision? How is it? You've been there before in these meetings. How is it organized?
Well, one very important part that day is the establishment of rules for that day. You want to get a fair vote if you brought 30 people that are committed to a particular candidate.
Okay.
So just from my experience, in 2008, we decided the fair way would be in our township to stand up and count off. And that way we got recorded votes on everything that occurred that day. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, the rules, the establishment of the rules is a very important juncture of the process.
Okay, so I bring 30 for Gingrich, you bring 40 for Romney, somebody else brings 20 for Santorum, and somebody else has got 50 for Ron Paul. At the end of the day, how do those numbers translate later on?
Again, that would be in the rules as to whether this body assembled, as you laid out, is going to elect delegates by a plurality, or a majority. If they just elect delegates by a plurality, based upon the numbers you said, you're likely going to have to coalesce and to reach a majority in that instance.
So it's not like one. I don't know how many delegates are being allotted at these various meetings, but it's not like two, and then another candidate. Well, he gets 3, and another one gets 2, and then another one gets 4, or something. Is it something like that, or is it winner take all in that room? Eventually, everybody has to agree. Some majority has to agree that they want all of their votes to go to Mitt Romney. Is that how it works in there, or
well,
or is it the rules however you set it up that day?
The rules are however you set it up that day. But remember, this is the key point: is that group of patriots assembled are sovereign. That's the most important point. They're sovereign. They make their own rules. They're sovereign in the sense they're going to elect their own chairman that day. They're going to elect their own secretary. So that's the key point to keep in mind, is the body assembled makes the decisions of that day, because these are the people that have bothered to come out, and they're registered voters within that township area, and they're signing a sheet saying, I do hereby certify that I am a Republican. And then they're allowed to participate.
Okay, so then you have the March 17th vote, and that's done. Then the next thing, they move to the April 21st in St. Louis or St. Charles County. That's the congressional meetings. And people who are elected from those township meetings are the ones who will participate in April?
Absolutely.
And then
can I tell you a little bit about what's going to happen?
Right. And right now we've got about 10 minutes left here. So things are going by fast, so we're going to move along.
In April, we are going to elect 3 delegates to go to the Tampa Bay Republican National Convention. Now, that could very well be 2 committed to candidate A and 1 committed to candidate B. We're going to elect 3 alternates to go to Tampa Bay that day, and that could very well be 2 committed to candidate B and 1 committed to candidate A. The other important thing we'll do that day is we will nominate a presidential elector. Now, the key thing about that presidential elector, that person only goes to Jefferson City in December to cast his electoral college vote if the Republican slate is carried in the state of Missouri. And
you get a total of 10.
Absolutely.
You get 1 for each congressional district and 1 for each senator.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And the other important thing we'll do on April 21st is consider platform suggestions that came up to us from the grassroots level, the March 17th Township level.
And that gets carried on to Tampa to the platform committee there?
Well, remember, we're still in Missouri.
Right.
So what comes out of April 21st is going to go to the June 2nd state convention.
And then from there, well, I don't want to rush you. Go ahead.
Well, I'm ready to tell you what's going to happen in June when we get there.
Go ahead.
In June, when we get to the state convention, we are going to elect a slate of 26 delegates to go to Tampa Bay. And I did want to mention that the state chair, the national committee man, and the national committee woman are delegates by virtue of their office. They don't have to stand for election.
Who are these people?
The state chair is David Cole.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on.
No, the other 2 names escape me at this moment. So they go by virtue of their office, and then we'll elect 24 alternates that'll go to Tampa Bay. And also, as you alluded to, we're going to elect 2 statewide presidential electors, and again, they only go to Jeff City in December if the state is carried for the nominee. And then we're going to debate and finalize the Missouri GOP platform.
Now, just so that people who are listening to this are clear, my understanding is that if you're chosen as a delegate to go to Tampa, the state party is not paying for your trip there, are they?
Absolutely. That's a good point to make, Lee. Thanks for bringing that up. You know,
you're going there.
It's on you. It's on your dime. Yeah. So you got to
really want to do this.
You have to really want to do it. And just for instance, when it was in New York, it was unbelievably expensive. So it's quite a commitment. But again, you may have people that want to do this for their particular candidate. You know, so they're willing to sacrifice and take money out of their personal treasury to do this.
So now, coming back to the June 2nd meeting where you say that you're finalizing the Missouri platform, is any of this information being carried forward to the National Platform Committee at the National Convention?
I would assume that the state party, once we finalize it on June 2nd, that they would send our document on to the National Party Platform Committee. But specifically, the National Party does have their own platform committee. So if I wanted something in my National Party platform, I would contact the members of the committee directly and say, this is what I'd like to see as a national issue in our national party platform.
Well, here in the last 5 minutes, is there any areas that we haven't covered yet that you want to make sure that you get that information in?
I would just like to talk a little bit about why I like the caucus system vis-a-vis the primary.
Okay.
The primary, the reason I oppose a winner-take-all primary is because what it does is it forces instant unity on the Republican electorate. Well, Lee, the Republican electorate, as you know, is very independent-minded. And to say, for instance, Mr. McCain got 33%, Mr. Huckabee got 32%, Mr. Romney got 29%, and Mr. Paul got 4% in Missouri in 2008. Well, when Mr. McCain won the primary, we were all forced into this instant unity, and that's not very realistic part of the process. On the other hand, a caucus system is the purest form of democracy. If you're able to get your supporters for your particular candidate out to the caucus,
You got a three-step process here.
yes, then you succeed and you go on to the next level with that, group that favors your particular candidate. So that's why I favor the caucus system. And another reason I like the caucus system, showing my bias here, is that the caucus system tends to lean towards platform-believing Republicans. Platform-believing Republicans happen to be conservative Republicans. I happen to be one of those, so there are the folks that believe in the right to life, sanctity of marriage, less spending, less taxes, preserving your Second Amendment rights, etc. So it tends to lead to a more conservative GOP candidate at the top of the ticket because of the people that bother to show up at a caucus are more committed to ideals and principles than the group of people who take 4 minutes to vote. They're less committed to ideals and principles.
What do you find that they are committed to, if anything? People who just go to a primary and vote.
Well, some of them are actually raiding the Missouri Republican primary because there's not any real true competition on the other, primaries. So they could.
What you're saying, Democrats come in and try to skew the results.
Yeah, they could come in and vote for whoever they believe would be in their best interest to vote for.
That's interesting. In Missouri, it is an open process. In Illinois, Democrats vote for Democrats, and they have already declared themselves to be Democrats, and Republicans vote for Republicans, and they've already declared themselves to be Republicans.
Well,
I'm just in the last minute here.
Is
there some reason why Missouri does not have that system, or why that's better that it be open?
Well, Missouri only has voter registration as voter registration, so we don't register by party. So whenever you walk into the polling place, you can be whatever you want to be that day, a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, or a Constitution Party member. And that's just because in Missouri, we haven't gone to registration of voters by political party. So it's more of an open system where you choose to participate in that way.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the taking the time and introducing us to this caucus system, which is quite a mouthful. Thanks. Appreciate you having you here. And I've been speaking with John Judd. He was representing the Republican Party of St. Louis County, actually, and explaining the caucus system, which will be starting on St. Patrick's Day. See you all next week. Thanks.